Very good morning to one and all. Welcome back to history class. Today is 20th Feb 2021. In the revision series, we are moving to see the upcoming points from the history. First, chapter number 6, new questions and ideas. In this revision part, we are going to have the revision, the story of Buddha, Upanishads, Jainism, monasteries, and after that we are going to understand about the question and answers from this chapter. So this revision is very important. Please go through it in a systematic way. The story of Buddha. Siddhartha, also known as Gautam, the founder of Buddhism, was born around 2500 years ago. This was the time of rapid change in the lives of the people. You saw in chapter number 5 how some kings in the Mahajanpadas were growing more powerful. The new cities were developing and the life was changing in the villages, as you will see in the chapter number 9. Many thinkers were trying to understand these changes in societies. They also wanted to try and find out the true meaning of the life. So by these slides we are going to have in the phase to see about the Lord Buddha stories. The name of Lord Buddha was Siddhartha, which was also known as Gautam, the founder of Buddhism, right? Next, the Buddha belonged to some small Gana known as Shakyas. Was a Kshatriya. When he was young man, he left the comfort of his home in search of knowledge. He wandered in several years, meetings and whole discussions. With other thinkers, he finally decided to find his own path to realization and meditate for days and end under a peepal tree at Bodh Gaya, which is situated in Bihar, where he attained enlightenment. After that, he was known as Buddha, which can be called as the Wise One. He went to Sarnath near Varanasi, where he taught for the first time. He spent the rest of her life traveling on a foot, going from place to place, teaching people till he passed away at Kushin. The Buddha taught that the life is full of suffering and unhappiness. This is the cost because we have carving and design, which means they are often and cannot be fulfilled. Sometimes even if we get what we want, we are not satisfied and want even more or want other things. The Buddha described this as a thrust or tanha. He taught that the constant carving could be removed by following moderation in everything. So our desires are the main cause of our suffering and unhappiness, because our desires are never going to be stopped. I require this thing, that thing, and it's going on. Keep wishes are increasing and never stopping. After fulfilling also new wishes are coming. He also taught that the people to be kind and to respect the lives of others, including animals. He believed that the result of our action, that means karma, were good or bad, affects us both in the life and the next. The Buddha taught in the language of ordinary people, that means the Prakrut, so that everybody could understand his message. What was the language used to compose the Veda? He also encouraged people to think for themselves rather than to simply accept what he said. Let us see how he did this. So the question, what was the language used to compose the Veda? That's a question for you. Upanishads. So what are Upanishads? Let's see. Around the time the Buddha was preaching, and perhaps a little earlier, the other thinker who tried to find out the answer to the difficult question. And what was the difficult question? Let's see. Some of them wanted to know about life after death. Others wanted to know why sacrifice should be performed. Many of these thinkers felt that there was something permanent in the universe that would last even after death. They described this as an Atma or an individual soul, or the Brahman or the universal soul. They believed that ultimately both the Atma and the Brahman were one. Next, many of their ideas were recorded in Upanishads. These were the part of later Vedic texts. Upanishad literally means approaching and sitting near, and the text contained the conversation, that is the conversation between the two people, that the teachers and the student. Often ideas were presented through in a simple dialogue. Most Upanishadic thinkers were men, especially Brahmins and Rajas. Occasionally there are mentions of women thinkers such as Gagri. So here we are going to see about the Gargi, who was famous for her learning and participate in debates held in a royal courts. People believe really took part in these discussions. One famous expectation was Satyakarma Jabla, who was named after the mother and the slave woman Jabali. He had a deep desire to learn about reality, was accepted as student by a Brahmin teacher named Gautama, and become the most best known thinker of the time. Many of the ideas of the Upanishad were later developed by the famous thinker Shankaracharya, about whom you will read in class 7th. Jainism. Now we are going to see about the Vardhaman Mahavira, the founder or the 24th Trikanat of Jainism. Also spread the message around this time. So 2500 years ago. He was also Kshatriya prince, of Vachi Sangha. He also left his house, and at the 30, he started to live in the forest, and after 12 years, he led in a hard and a lonely place, at the end which he attained the enlightenment. Let's check out about his teaching. So his teaching was also simple and striking to few points. He taught a simple doctrine: men and women who wish to know the truth must leave their home. They must follow very strictly the rule of ahimsa, that means not to harm others, means not to hurting or killing living beings. All beings, said Mahavira, long to live. To all things, life is dear. Ordinary people could understand the teaching of Mahavira and his followers because they used Prakrit language, which is called the local language of the people. There were several forms of Prakrit used in different parts of the country, named after the reason which they were used. For example, Prakrit spoken in Magda was known as Magdi. Next, the follower of Mahavira, who were known as Jainas, had to lead a very simple life, begging of food. They had to be absolutely honest and were especially asked not to steal. Also, they had to observe service. And men had to give up everything, including their clothes. It was very difficult for most men and women to follow these strict rules. Nevertheless, thousands left their the homes to learn and teach the new way of life. Many more remained behind and support these who become monks and nuns, provide them with the food. Jainism was supported mainly by the traders, farmers who had to kill insects to protect their crops. Found it more difficult to follow the rules. Over hundreds of years, Jainism spread to the different parts of India. That means the North India, to Gujarat, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. The teaching of Mahavira and his followers were transmitted orally for several centuries. They were written down in the form which they are presently available. It is called as Valapi. In Gujarat about 1500 years ago. Next, the Sangha. The Mahavira and Buddha felt those who left their homes could gain true knowledge. They arranged for them to stay together in Sangha, an association for those who left their homes. The rule made for the Buddhist Sangha were written down. They were called as Vinakpatika. From this we know that there were a separate branches for men and women. All men could join the Sangha. However, children had to take the permission of their parents and slaves that of their master. Those who worked for the king had to take permission and so on. Let's move. Men and women who joined the Sangha lead simple living. In the simple living they used to meditate most of the time and went to the city and village for begging the food during a fixed period only. Then they were known as bhikshus, and the women they are known as bhikshunis. They taught others and helped one another. They also held a meeting to settle any quarrel that took place within the Sangha. Those who joined the Sangha include Brahman, Kshatri, merchants, laborer, barbers, courtesan and slave. Many of them wrote down the teaching of Buddha, and some of them composed beautiful poems describing the life in the Sanghas. So here we are talking about the two major religions, Jainism and Buddhism. The monasteries. To begin with, the both Jain and Buddhist monk went from one place to another throughout the year, teaching people. The only time to stay in a one place was during the rainy season, when it was very difficult to travel. Thus their supporters built their temporary shelters for them in garden or lived in a natural caves in a hilly area. As went many supporters of monks and nuns, and they themselves had the need of more permanent shelter, or monasteries were built. They were known as viharas. The earliest viharas were made up of wood and then it of brick. Some were even in caves were dug out in hills, especially in western India. Very often the land on which the vihara was built was donated by the rich merchant or the landlord or the king. The local people came with the gift of food, clothing and medicine for the monks and nuns. In return they used to taught the people. Over the century, Buddhism spread to many parts of the subcontinent and beyond. You will learn more about in the chapter number 9. Next, moving further to see more, we are going to see the question and its answer. Describe the way in which the Buddha tried to spread his message to the people. So this question is speaking to you about the teaching of Buddha, the message of Buddha, how Buddha wanted to spread his message to move. Let's check out the answer. So the answer, the slide is representing the answer for you. Buddha taught the people in Prakrit, which was the language of ordinary people, so that everybody could understand his message without any difficulty. He also encouraged people to think for themselves rather to simply accept what he said. Buddha himself set an example to lead a simple life. Gautam Buddha moved from one place to another to give his message to all people, ordinary as well as from the other classes of the society. So here, describe the way, how the Buddha tried to spread the message. So all the ways is said it. You can frame your own answer. Take the reference of this answer and write in your own words. If you have already written, no need to write it. Let's check out the true and false. So these are the answers. Let's check out the question. Question number 2. Write whether they are true or false. After reading the whole chapter, the same sentence from the chapter is placed here. So you can understand about they are correct or not. The Buddha encouraged animal sacrifice. So it's absolutely wrong because he never encouraged the animal sacrifice. So that is false. Sarnath is an important place because it was the first where the Buddha taught at first time. So that's it true. The Buddha taught that the karma has no effect. So it's again incorrect because he stated about that the karma has the effect on our life. Next, D. Buddha attained the enlightenment at Bodh Gaya. Yes, it's true. Upanishadic thinkers believe that the Atma and the Brahmans were ultimately one. Yes, it's also correct. You can read the chapter if you are having the textbook and see whether these answers are correct or not. Moving further, question number 3. What were the questions that Upanishadic thinker wanted to answer? So here, the question is asking about the Upanishadic thinkers wanted to answer few questions. So what were the questions? Let's see the answer. Upanishadic thinkers wanted to know about life after the death. So after that, what will happen to our life? They wanted to know about that. Some of them wanted to know about why sacrifice should be performed. They felt there had to be something permanent in the universe that lasts even after the death. And their ideas are recorded in Upanishads. So by this, we are understanding that the questions which the Upanishadic thinkers were thinking and they were trying to answer it, and all these were recorded in Upanishads. Which already I explained to you in a dialogue form between the student and the teacher. Next, fourth question. What were the main teaching of Mahavira? Here we are going to see about the main teachings of Mahavira. Mahavira taught which thing we are going to see in this answer. So let's check out the answer to see the teaching of Mahavira. So the answer is here. So the main teaching of Mahavira are following. He taught a simple doctrine. And what was that? The men and women who wish to know the truth must leave their homes. That means they have to leave out their all the desires. After that, they must follow very strictly the rule of ahimsa, which means not hurting or killing living beings. After that, all beings, said Mahavira, long to live. To all things, life is dear. So, the teaching of Mahavira, the question can be asked, what was the simple doctrine of Mahavira? In that also you have to write about the 2 points. The men and women who used to wish to know about the truth must leave their homes and they must follow the path of ahimsa, and which is meaning, that means not to hurt or not to kill living beings. So here in this chapter we had seen about the 2 points of Lord Mahavira and Lord Buddha story from their Sanghas, what was their teaching and all. Lastly, please do this revision part very properly. At the last, I want to tell to each and everyone, please, if you haven't written the question answers of any chapter, please take a notebook and please write down, because after few days we are going to start the revision for annual examination. In that, through this slide presentation, I am going to tell you about how the question paper pattern will be there of 80 mark, 80A, and we are going to do the revision. So thanking to each and everyone. Be safe and secure at your home. Jai Hind to one and all.